Hold on a second. Let me see if I got it. Let me see if I got it.
I do see it
Okay.
says meeting is now streaming live, so
Yeah. Hold on a second.
maybe you did.
Hold on a second here. Let me see if it. Okay. Okay. We are on the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. And I have a wonderful guest here with me this evening. Her name is Keshi Munyan. Did I get that right?
Yep, that's perfect.
uh, Keshi is a podcaster, and she has a podcast called uh, Muscle, the Mindset and Muscle Podcast. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Before we get started, Keshi, I like to ask all the people that I interview this question. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what do you do?
Okay, perfect. So yeah, as you said, I'm Keshi, and I do have a podcast as well called Mindset and Muscle. I'm working through like a little bit of maybe a rebrand for the name actually, because while so what do? I do so many things. So where do I start? I have a full-time job, kind of like a boring regular desk job, but also part-time. I'm a fitness and nutrition coach, which I usually like to like tell people more about, which is what kind of brought about the podcast, and we'll talk more about that, about my whole journey today. But um, because I wanted to have different guests, like a more variety of different speakers and stuff, I'm like maybe I'll branch out of just like fitness and nutrition and have a little bit more of like things that interest me in general, because I know that sometimes that interests a lot of people too. So we'll see. Maybe it will end up being the Keshi show or something. We'll see. But right now it's mindset and muscle. And yeah, so I'm basically like a nutrition and fitness coach. That's what I do on the side, and then have just a bunch of different hobbies I'm exploring. Just baking, sewing, gardening, kind of like all different like fun different things. So some of my hobbies, where I'm from, I'm originally from a small island that very few people know about. It's called Mauritius. It's on the east coast of Madagascar, but I live in Canada, in Alberta, Canada.
Cool, cool. Okay. Mauritius. Is that how
Yes.
you pronounce it?
Yeah,
Mauritius.
that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. Before we proceed, Keshi, I just like to say this. Uh, this is Mental Health Month, and
Yes.
uh, as people know about me, I take that very serious. And this is a month for, I guess, every month is important, but I guess you want to give it a label. So this is Mental Health Month. So um, I'm going to be taking some time to reflect and really going a little deeper, I guess, as to uh, my mission here doing my podcast, uh, taking a little time to reflect on where I've been and where I want to go. I'm not going to let the issues of mental health uh, deter me. I'm the
Yeah.
captain of my ship, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna be the one doing the steering. I'm not gonna let it steer me anymore. So I say that to say this to everybody that's listening or will listen: be the captain of your ship. Don't let your issues um, control you. Don't let your issues take the better of who you are as a man or a woman. Um, take charge. Uh, be prideful of your progress. Uh, be thankful of where you are because it could be worse, and enjoy the journey. Right. So, uh, if you guys have any questions you may want to ask of Keshi as we proceed with this interview, please do so. So, with that being said, talk to us about your journey, Keshi. I know that your podcast uh, is Mindset and Muscle, and I know that from our previous interview, you had an issue with your weight and your self-image. So talk to us about that. Talk to us about that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So my health and fitness journey and my weight loss journey, I would say it starts from like when I was very, very young. I just for as long as I could remember, I was like a chubby kid. I think I started dieting when I was like 8, 9 years old, which I do not recommend. If you have kids, even if they're a little bit chubby, that's very young. So I definitely would not recommend like that. But basically, getting the whatever food that I like, the cereal, or whatever, taken from me and like given a salad instead, like getting the burgers taken from me and given a salad instead. And I'm saying that like my parents are super supportive. They're like great parents. I'm not saying that in the sense of like I felt like it was abuse or anything like that, but I'm just saying they were trying their best to make sure I was like healthy. But I do remember still feeling like I was like deprived of food and I didn't have like a good relationship with food even like growing up, because of that. Again, they were trying their best with what they could do. I have a great relationship with my parents still, but that doesn't change the fact that dieting from like very, very young is not necessarily the most helpful for our relationship with food later. So then, um, so at that point, I was kind of like, again, a chubby kid, and which I think I mentioned that before. It's kind of like cute until you're like 5 years old, and then it starts not
Yeah.
becoming like that cute anymore. Um, but even like at school, there would be comments. I wouldn't necessarily again say I take that very seriously too because I do understand a lot of people have had it a lot worse. So I don't want to just pretend like it was the worst thing ever because people could be like, oh, well, you didn't have it that bad. You were a happy kid. Like I was still a happy kid. I had friends, all of this. But there were definitely comments. It did bother me. I did feel like my weight came into kind of like everything. Like when I was trying to, things like I was trying to get clothes when I was like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. I couldn't get clothes that would fit me. I would have to get clothes like basically adult clothes. And I had a friend who mentioned you always wear like mom clothes or like woman clothes, like why? But that's because especially in Mauritius we get a lot of clothes from China actually, which the sizes are a lot smaller. So here we
Smaller.
would see a lot of like,
Yeah.
yeah, but their sizes are smaller, so then even like a large or an XL, like there's no XL for kids I guess, but a large still too small. So I couldn't get my jeans, never had flowers on them because I couldn't get like kids jeans. It was always bigger. um I had like, sometimes even like a teacher who make comments on my way, like joking way. But again, when like the whole class, I was a little bit of the class clown. I try to make it my identity so people would laugh with me instead like at me. But at the end of the day, I was still hurt by the comments when I'm being called like some names and some jokes um that I know or is because of me. But anyway, so growing up, I at some point I did lose a little bit of weight. So it was good. I was around like grade 9 or something. Before that, I had tried everything. Honestly, when I say everything, like the belts, the shoes. I had like shoes that were kind of like curved, and then it was supposed to make you like burn fat. I had like
Shoes?
aluminum pants supposed to make you like
Wait,
burn
wait a minute. Wait a minute.
like
Wait.
yeah, they were
Wait.
shoes.
Let me stop you. Let me.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I
Wait.
That's what I mean by my parents were supportive too. Like they spent so much money on those. Oh,
Wait a minute.
it's
Wait a minute.
I
Shoes?
know, I know.
Talk to
So
me
the
about these
shoes,
shoes. What? What?
they were like oh, I'm trying to like look at something flat. So like this is how regular shoes are. They were literally like curved like this.
What?
They were so difficult to walk in, obviously, and they were ridiculously ugly. But they just made you feel like, oh, okay, because it's like so difficult to to like walk in, you're like exerting yourself more. And again, I was like 10 years old. I don't know anything at that point. I was believing in Santa Claus still. I didn't know what made sense and what didn't.
Did you wear the
But
shoes to
we're
make you
kind
lose weight?
I wore the shoes that made me lose weight. It didn't do anything, just made me probably lose a couple friends at that point. So ugly. I wore aluminum pants. It was aluminum pants. I was supposed to make you
Aluminum.
sweat. It was ridiculous. I'm so embarrassed. I wore those pants until they were like ripped and torn apart. I wore
Oh my
those
God.
religiously at home.
Were you trying to cook yourself? What the hell? Aluminum
I
pants?
know. I would wear that and do like Zumba or something, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm sweating a lot. I guess it's working."
What?
I know, but that's why when people say like I've tried everything,
Oh my
I
goodness.
I
Wow. That no, that's
actually have
uh-oh.
tried a lot. Oh, did
Wow.
I freeze again?
Yeah, you're freezing a little bit here. You're fine
Okay,
now. You're
okay.
fine now, but wow. So I would imagine, Keshi, that it affected your self-image greatly to
Yeah,
wear the crazy shoes and the aluminum.
and you know what? At that point, I when I was a kid, there was only so much that I was thinking about in terms of self-image and things like that. So that was before I guess I should have mentioned that at first, but I did end up eventually losing weight. My heaviest I was like almost 200 pounds, and then I lost like 60 to 70 pounds, and now I'm like at like 130, 135 pounds. But like, so there was like a happy ending after that. But yes, like while I was at my heaviest or during that time, definitely my self image was affected. I think it was affected more when I had gained weight back on. So I said it, I lost weight twice. The first time I kind of just tried everything and some things worked and some didn't.
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't really know exactly. And then I slowly like put weight back on, and then COVID happened, and that was when I was at my heaviest.
Oh, you're freezing again. Keshi, you're freezing again.
That was when my self image was. I was like grown up. Like I knew. Am I back? Am I still frozen?
Yeah, you're frozen.
Oh, okay. I try to turn off my video for a little bit. Maybe that will help. Does that help?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Okay, let me try to turn it back on now. Okay. If it keeps freezing, maybe I'll keep my video off. Sometimes it helps the bandwidth. Um, but yeah, just let me know if it freezes again. But I was saying like my self-image was affected when I was at my heaviest for sure because
Mhm.
I did notice people treating me differently. That was a big thing. People treating me differently, but also just me myself like just not feeling confident at all. Like I was treating myself differently too, and I was kind of making people treat me differently in that way because like everything was just kind of a joke about weight or like people were uncomfortable too because then like I would always be like, oh, when there's something about weight, I would just make a joke before people make a joke on me basically. So definitely that was my lowest confidence ever. I would say that like when I was at my heaviest, it doesn't have to be for everybody, but when I personally was at my heaviest and I was at my most unhealthy state too, then my mental health was not like again I was not like necessarily I was not depressed,
Uh-huh.
but I was at my low like one of
Your
my lowest or
self-esteem.
less happy. Yes, my self-esteem was very very low.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Um, so what made you do the podcast then?
So then when I actually I don't hopefully people can tell that maybe now my confidence is better since I came on a podcast, but I don't know if people can tell that or live. But the what made me start a podcast was when things went the other way and I not only lost the weight, but I also got a better relationship with food and I also got a better relationship especially with my body. I gained a lot of confidence after the work I kind of did. It was not just weeks of work, it was like a couple years of work in the making, but the months and years that led to that, people obviously were asking questions. Well, the questions I was getting was more like, how did you lose the weight? What can I do? I want to be on a diet too. I've been trying to lose weight. What did you do? But then a lot of people, they were asking some questions that obviously I had answers I could talk about for hours, which that's one thing, but there were also other underlying things that I feel like people weren't necessarily asking because they were maybe as embarrassed as I was about. But I know that the answers would help them because sometimes when I dig a little deeper, I can feel like, again, that insecurity or like people mentioning things like, um, just not wanting to be naked in front of their partner or like never wanting to have sex when unless it's completely black or things like that. Just like not even with like literally their partner, the person like is the most important to them or who they could be their most intimate with, they still can't be that intimate with. They're still not, there's something missing. So then I was like, okay, maybe a few things that I did, not only physically but mentally, could help other people as well. And I was like, well, let's try, let's give it a try, let's start a podcast. And actually, when I started it, I had a friend who told me I was literally waiting for when you were going to start a podcast because I've been like, because I had my Instagram and I was already kind of giving some advice and giving some things like that, but not a podcast. And she was like, and she's tuning in every week. so, so I'm really
Nice, nice, nice. Um, how is weight looked upon in your culture in Mauritius?
yeah, I would say it's very like it's a stigma for sure. For us in Mauritius, I would say like skin color for some reason is more I've heard more about it. For example, like wearing like creams and lotions and stuff about to get a little bit lighter. Um
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
turn white. I'm still going to be brown, but then still that spectrum kind of like those things are
Mm-hmm.
like very like preferred. I would say like people who are like lighter brown prefer to like a darker brown. Even in my like culture, I like my ancestors come from like South India, so there's only again that little spectrum. But in Mauritius, we have people. If people don't know of all this, and so we have people whose ancestors come from like India, or some people whose ancestors come from China, from different parts of Africa, Europe a little bit, not that much, but like all over the place, like Pakistan, like everywhere. But
Mm.
um, so it still we have like a mix, which you would think skin color wouldn't be any problem at all, but it is. However, weight
Yes.
as well, it is, but it's more like it is everywhere, I would say. So even here, when you look at somebody who's like very, and maybe somebody who's like morbidly obese, some things do sometimes cross our mind. Some things that I've heard people mention is um, people say like lazy or unhealthy or kind of like those things. Those same thoughts cross people's minds back then. The only difference is that that weight that people start like judging you at is less. So while here, I feel like just because in Canada and the US, just a lot of people are heavier, to be honest, than in Mauritius. But so basically, what I can maybe try to speak in terms of like clothes, like sizes of clothes. But here, if we wear like a large or something or an XL, that's like a normal average size. But maybe like back home in Mauritius, that's already on the heavier side. So skinny is definitely preferred. And then as soon as you're not skinny, unless you're like athletic, but if you start having like some fat on you, it's already kind of like it's yeah, at a lighter weight than here, you would already be considered like fat, basically. And then that fat connotation is the same as usually here people would have for people who are heavier, for people who are, I would say, obese here.
Yeah. So it's more of a skin thing than a weight thing. What do
It's
you think?
both. There's definitely judgment on everything, but like I noticed for like the skin one is a little bit like people say it and expect people not to be offended basically because they're not saying necessarily like if somebody is just naturally darker, they're not saying that they expect them to be white. That like it's weird. It's a weird thing because even for me, I never got like bullied because I was like a darker skin or anything like that. However, we do tend to see, for example, if people are gonna get married, and let's just say there's a lot of people get like love marriages too, but let's just say some people do decide to let their aunts and mom like get them an arranged marriage or something. Some of this also happens, but then those like family members would tend to look for, especially girls that are lighter skinned. It tends to be less with boys for some reason. It's okay if boys have darker skin, but yeah, especially like if it's a girl, it's better if she has like lighter skin, just more like prettier is what usually it is, and it would still be the same. I would say for weight as well. It would be
Yeah.
better if she's skinnier instead of heavier.
Mhm. I've heard that in that part of the world that skin color plays a major role in how you're
Yeah,
viewed and how you're looked at as attractive or non-attractive. But that's a different discussion. But I would like to have that discussion too because
yeah, it
that
is.
plays a role. That does play a role in how I guess the world at large looks at color.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
darker you seem to be, the less attention you may get. But yeah, that's a different but interesting conversation
Interesting topic. Yeah.
there. Yeah. So what is your target your target audience?
Yeah, so my target audience is anybody who is trying to have a physical and mental transformation both. So I speak to people, especially when I started the podcast. As I said, now I'm trying to like branch more, and having more people because so. First of all, I need to say like my target audience is not necessarily like businesses and things like that. Like I'm not gonna help businesses people make money necessarily, but it's more so like people like you and me, but who are want to learn more, want to like get that knowledge, listen to podcasts to get that knowledge, but started out as people who want to have that physical transformation, usually weight loss. It could be like 5 pounds, or it could be like 150 pounds. But especially those who also need that mental transformation of like they're not necessarily happy, or as happy as they know they could be in their body right now. So not just losing weight sometimes doesn't automatically bring you to that point of like being super confident, being super happy. That first time that I had lost weight, I had not worked on um, like that mental aspect, that confidence aspect. So I didn't get there. And then the second time when I did it, more educated, yes, but I worked on that mental aspect as well. And then that's when I felt that confidence boost. So like I want to let people know, and it's also a fine line because, and that's another topic too that is a pretty sensitive topic, but body positivity. Sometimes people just think that okay, like, I'm just completely for body positivity. Not honestly, like not really. There's a certain point. Like I do understand that I don't want people to not respect themselves and not be happy with themselves, but I see so many people also just saying they're perfect, they're 10 out of 10 and they don't need to change. But then I think that you're not allowing yourself the room for like change and for progress. Even after I lost so much weight, I'm always striving to just be better and be healthier and like kind of just be better, not just for myself and for my partner, which is also sometimes frowned upon to say that I want to look as good as I can for my partner. I want to be as healthy as I can for my future children.
Right.
So I don't necessarily think that you should be, just satisfied with how you are and just work on the confidence. Because my way of going about confidence comes with that physical transformation if you need it as well. It kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah. You talked about something that I'm going to mention later on during our interview when you talked about body positivity, but
Okay.
I'll save that for later.
Okay.
um, so you are a nutrition and fitness coach. How
Yes.
difficult was it for you to transition into that role?
It wasn't that difficult as I like thought it was going to be necessarily, just because I learned a lot of what I needed to learn and like what eventually were in those certifications that I did take. Um, I learned it while I was having my own weight loss journey because I wanted to do it the right way. I wanted to learn like the science behind it, and like I don't want to be like lied to because as everybody else, we keep hearing different messages from everybody. So one person's telling me to be vegan. I was vegan for a while, not for necessarily health reasons. It was for like animal rights reasons, so that's different. But I was some people say go vegan and that's the healthiest one. Other people say carnivore diet. Other people say keto. Other people say fast. I was like, there's so many. I can't just like if I follow everybody, I just will never eat anything. So I want to know what actually has science backing it and what is something that okay, maybe like might help some people, but it's okay if I don't do it. Like if I hate like fasting, maybe I don't have to do it or things like that. So learning all of those just for my own interest. I was listening to podcasts like every day and like always like in my free time. I'm always like in different phases and like that was like my nutrition phase, my fitness phase. So that's all I was listening and taking in. So then when I went and actually got the nutrition certification, a lot of this information I had already known. Obviously, I got some new ones, but what I learned mostly, what that was new, was how to really work with clients, rather than like the nutrition aspect. A lot of it, I was like with all the protein, carbs, and fats, and different things. I kind of already knew that, so it
Yeah.
was not that hard to transition.
Good. 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 Is there a model that you use for your coaching practice?
No, I just base it just in very individual to that person. So some people, just like I track macros for a while, especially. So even on my different, people have different like phases. So like fitness phases, health phases. So you're not always going to be dieting. Some people are always trying to diet, but most of the time, most of our life, we shouldn't be dieting. So most of it would be in the maintenance phase, and then there's the cutting phase or the dieting phase, and then some people could have like a bulk or something like that. But so while like I have different cutting phases, obviously throughout the years, I have tried being on a meal plan from like a dietitian. I have tried like my own meal plan. I have tracked my macros, um, or tracked only like protein and calories or only calories. And I have tried like mindful eating. I've tried like different ones, and also for my clients as well. It's whatever kind of phase they're at. For them, it can change as well, but also from person to person, it really depends on what their goals are, what they're most comfortable with, how they want, how much they have to lose, what they want their life to look like, how their relationship with food is,
Right.
what their dieting history is. So not I don't have like one approach at all.
Okay. Now we're going to switch up for a minute and talk about body positivity. Um,
Absolutely.
what what are you, I know you shared a little bit about your thoughts, but can you expound a little bit more about what your thoughts are about that? Because
Yeah.
I yeah, go ahead, go ahead. I'll let you talk.
Okay. Yeah. Like a lot of like movements these days, I feel like it started out well, and it started when it started out, I was like, okay, great, yeah, good movement. And then it just got turned into something that's a little too much on the other extreme that I'm like, okay, I can't support that. It's becoming a little bit dangerous to be supporting that now. We're just literally afraid of saying anything to anyone who's fat. We can't really say. So basically now it becomes to a point where people who are fit can't really voice their opinion on anything,
Mm,
to the point where they even trying to, if people even like, if I am fat and I'm like kind of like wanting advice from people who are fit, but then if they give me advice, I can turn it back on them, and everybody would be on my side and not on their side. I did notice that difference when I was heavy versus when I had lost weight. Is when I was heavier, a lot of people were more of like, you're perfect, you're like whatever, very kind of like on my side in that aspect. Very much like, oh, you go, like girl boss, just whatever, as if nothing I could do would be wrong. Whereas as soon as like I lost weight, and now when I share, I noticed that a few times I've shared on my Instagram stories my transformation. So if sometimes just sharing that creates backlash,
mm,
or if I
mm,
especially say, there was one that people that I know from a couple years ago that I thought were like friends actually left comments on those, but that was one I said that, it's how you look is your responsibility, so it's in your hands. In the caption I was saying, okay, like there's like exceptions and things like that, and I'm not saying that like, okay, it's your fault. Okay, just go back. No, what I'm saying is like you can take control. Like if you give the control away, you just feel like you can't do anything, and that's what a lot of people feel helpless. So then they don't do anything because they're like, well, that's
Mm.
just how I am, like whatever. However,
Yeah.
if you actually take responsibility and you're like, you know what, that's my body and that's my life, and you can't
Mhm.
just tell me that's just how I am. Like, no,
Mhm.
I can do something about it. Then
Mhm.
people actually take the steps to actually get to a healthier weight. And I don't believe that everybody could be like healthy necessarily. If somebody's like 400 or 500 pounds, I don't necessarily think they're healthy. No, like I know it causes a lot of backlash, but we have to understand there's a difference between somebody who's like chubby, I would say, or a little bit heavier. I'm not saying everybody has to just be super athletic, or somebody who's like morbidly obese. Like if somebody can't get up, for example, that's not okay. They have difficulty just walking up a flight of stairs and things like that. There,
Yeah.
we have to be realistic in those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the, you know, my take on that is there's nothing wrong with having a little extra pounds on you,
Hmm.
but if your weight prohibits you from
Yeah.
doing certain things and enjoying life the way that you want to, but can't,
Yes.
you have to take some sort of accountability
Yeah.
in what you in what you want to do moving forward, because I have to look at this as a black and white thing. Either you want to accept this and walk in that,
Yeah.
or you make steps to change it. If there are medical issues that prevent you from doing certain things, I get that,
Hmm.
because you are medically unable to do certain things. But what you can do, you should do. Does
Yes.
that make sense? If
Yeah.
you are able to do something to help you turn the tides around and maybe shed a couple pounds, then go for it.
Yeah.
If it all, to me, it kind of goes into, do I want to do it or do I don't want to do it?
Yeah.
If you
Absolutely.
don't complain. If you
Yes.
want to, then go for it. You know what I'm saying? The body positivity thing, it's like there's it's okay to be prideful about who you are as a person. I'm
Hmm.
not saying there's nothing wrong about being, overweight or whatever. Um, but if it's unhealthy for you, let's say you're 5'2", you're 5'3",
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah. Yeah.
weighing
I'm 5'1".
and
Yeah.
you're wearing, damn near 300 pounds. That's a
Exactly. Yeah.
problem.
It is.
That is a big freaking problem.
Yeah.
You know, uh, because there's women out here who are, overweight, but they look good. They carry it well,
Hmm.
right? Versus there's slimmer women who don't look good at all.
Hmm.
So it's like, uh when you talk about body positivity, I mean, you can look at it from both angles. You know, you got women that are slightly overweight but look good, and you got skinny women that don't look good at all. Like they need to gain some weight.
Yeah. That
So
is a thing too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess my take on body positivity is more of a personal choice. Not saying it's right or wrong, but I think in this day and age, I think people are making choices to, accept who they are. And
Yeah.
it's like, if a person doesn't like who I am at the weight that I am, then screw them. I'm gonna rock who I am. I'm gonna embrace who I am, and it is what it is.
Yeah,
uh,
and that's the thing too with like body positivity, because we're so that's what I mean, it goes so far. Because like you're right, when there's people who are extremely skinny and should be gaining some weight. So that's why I also when it started out, I'm like, just because somebody doesn't fit into that necessarily that BMI range that we talk about, that doesn't mean that necessarily there's something wrong with them. But then it
right,
went to the extreme that now everybody's like, you're perfect, everything is perfect, you don't need to do anything. But some people then just kind of pretend to be happy whereas they're not, but then they're also like they don't want to change because like body they have said they're body positivity. And also the other problem comes with when you make that another person or everybody else's problem. Like if you don't want to, if you think you're perfect the way you are and you don't need to lose weight, totally fine. But then I don't need to date you, for example. Like if a person doesn't want, like I feel like those people sometimes they feel like they're entitled to like being everybody's type still. Everybody has types, so like maybe they're not that person who they're attracted to.
yeah,
Especially girls, I would say that we tend to like have very fixed, like kind of like, oh, it needs to be like over 6 feet and like has this, has that. But then if somebody's like, well, my preference is somebody who's smaller, then that's a problem. Or it becomes people's problems when I just heard about like how on planes they're saying they need to get another seat for free because they're heavier, but then again flight prices will increase for everybody. Then when you're making it other people's problem, then that's also not okay. So it has to be okay with what you can have 2 3 seats, that's okay, but you have to pay for them. That's fine, but you can't just make it something that we should all accommodate. Not the world can't just accommodate like your thing.
mm, understood. Excuse me, I understood. Uh, have you ever heard of diet culture?
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, I had to do some research on this body positivity topic earlier, and I came across something referring to diet culture today. And
Okay.
I looked up, what they define as diet culture, and I'm going to read this right quick. It's a system of beliefs that create a very narrow way of looking at health. It equates thinness with health and suggests that anything outside of these parameters is unhealthy. It also normalizes labeling foods and habits as good or bad. Uh, Before I ask you the question based on that, you mentioned BMI. I'm considered overweight.
Mhm. I
I
think
did a
I
BMI
might
thing
still
and I'm
be.
considered overweight. Sorry, I'm
I think
sorry.
me too. I think me too. I'm still a little, I think a little bit, or I recently was or something.
Yeah, yeah. But what are your thoughts on this diet culture thing, which I just discovered today?
Well, I didn't know it was like that exact definitions, but like from I've heard of diet culture quite a bit. Like
Hmm,
essentially this idea of like kind of like always being on that diet train, basically. Like everybody, all like family members, aunts, and things like that. They're always kind of like trying to just lose a couple pounds or whatever,
hmm,
and labeling foods as good or bad again. Kind of like, oh, okay, no, you can't have like cookies; those are bad, things like that. I definitely don't like labeling things as good or bad, and I don't do it with any of my clients. Like if they label things good or bad, like I don't always, I'm not always like you can't say that. Um, but I don't encourage labeling things as that because everything is just there's no good and bad food. Again, you can gain weight eating um good food, just like fruit and meat and things like that. You can gain weight in that and you can lose weight. There's been like studies done when they only ate McDonald's or something and they lost weight. Does that mean that's healthy? No, that's not healthy. But that like weight and necessarily good and bad food, like people just like equate that and then just tend to have a bad relationship with food. So that's what I don't like. But another thing is then people are like, oh well, okay, let's just ditch diet culture and just eat how we like, or like intuitive eating, which is a great point to get to. But sometimes if people have been dieting for like a long time, what happens is like our hunger cues can be all over the place. Even like me recently after like a last cut, my hunger cues, and I'm aware of that too. And I'm a coach, but I also have a coach to keep me aware too. But at first my hunger cues are kind of all over the place, and if I'm not paying attention, then that intuitive eating, or that like kind of mindful eating, is not very mindful at all. I kind of just want to like eat anything in the pantry because I've been dieting for so long. So then it takes a while to kind of get back to like what normal should be, which at that point, yes, ideally people would just eat when they're hungry and then, stop eating when they're full. But a lot of people, again, because they cannot, they are hungry. Some people just like don't feel hungry, which is also not great if you're never hungry. And then or they just like never satiated, and then they don't take into consideration then what types of food, the quality of food. While there's no good and bad food, we should still think about quality of food in terms of like some foods will keep us fuller. Like for example, protein is something that keeps us fuller, and like fiber is also something that keeps us fuller, makes us fuller quicker, um, and for longer. So if sometimes just like intuitive eating, but not paying attention to what we are eating. Again, not saying there's good and bad foods. You can eat anything, but you just can't eat everything at
Yeah,
once.
yeah,
So you can
yeah.
definitely eat the cookie or whatever, but like if you want to eat the cookie and the cinnamon roll and the pizza and the spaghetti, you can't
Yes,
just eat everything in one day.
yeah, yeah.
So
And see,
that's
I get
that's
like that. That's me. I eat the cookie and the cinnamon roll and the, you know,
yeah, that's the thing, and that's when like intuit, like if you're
uh,
eating healthy, like
yeah,
for the most part, if you're like 90%, and when I say healthy, like you can think of it as like as least like going away from processed foods as much as possible, especially the like ultra processed foods. So anything like packaging or like in like boxes and things like that. If you can't eat as close to like, I don't want to say real food, but you can say real food, or just basically like foods that are in there as close to their natural form as possible. Now things like oatmeal are processed, but those are, not like they're like lightly processed. They're We have to be aware that oatmeal, like oats and Oreo cookie aren't the same thing. Like people like
yeah,
that's pretty easy to understand.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, as kind of like lightly processed as possible for like 80% of the time, then that 20% you can have whatever you want, and that should keep you on that track of like feeling full, but also like maintaining your weight and not, like gaining or losing weight.
yeah. A lot of us, especially in America, we tend to indulge in unhealthy foods, processed foods.
Yeah, it's
We lean
everywhere and
on
it's cheap.
we Yeah, right. It's cheap, and we lean on it for nutrition, which is
Yeah,
wrong because
yeah.
we should not lean on fast food for our nutrition.
No,
And
no.
here's my take on this diet culture thing. I think it could potentially be a toxic thing. Here's why.
Yeah,
Hear me out. Hear me out. I say that because you have a lot of people here who deal with self-esteem issues because of their weight. And when someone says to them, talks to them about their weight, it's triggering to them because it's sensitive to them. So
yeah.
it makes them retreat back to eating more unhealthy,
Yes.
unnutritious food. So when you have someone that says, man, put that damn cupcake down, it's going to make you fat. But
Mm,
I like cupcake. You know what I'm saying? I like it. So it, it's it serves as a harsh reality for many people who deal with food issues, that the struggle can be real,
yeah.
right? The struggle can be very real for some people who have issues with food because they lean on it. I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying that we have to be mindful of
Absolutely.
their mental process as it relates to food,
Yeah.
because if we harp on people about what they should eat, what they should drink, where they should go, where they should not go, I mean, it could create a negative response, because
Yeah.
that person could say, you know what, fuck all this, I'm just going to eat this damn
Yeah.
McDonald's and just be done with it. I don't care what you think. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
was definitely the most defensive and least receptive to feedback when I was at my heaviest because I was already again I didn't want to hear anything because everything would be a personal attack.
Yeah,
The thing is, like food serves different purposes. Like, yeah, it's fuel, yes, but not just that. Like, it's like a social thing. It brings joy. I'm a foodie. I still am. And when I'm eating my food, my boyfriend is not a foodie. He's just like doesn't necessarily enjoy food that as much as I do. So when he sees me eat it, I'm just like, this is like
Yeah,
delicious.
yeah,
He's like
yeah,
he just thinks
yeah.
it's like endearing
Right,
because it's like
right.
you really like just enjoy it. I'm like I do, and for some people it's a comfort thing. For some people in some phases of their lives, maybe it doesn't have to be like that all the time. But then, like you said, if they need comfort from those harsh words, they could go back to that. So even if somebody is like 400, 500 pounds, and when we both said like it's not necessarily at a healthy point to be, we still shouldn't be, first of all, disrespectful to anybody. That's still just like we have to have like basic human etiquette for everybody. Just we're still respecting somebody. Don't necessarily give your opinion to strangers when not asked. Like that's different.
Correct.
We were just talking about like just not encouraging like those behaviors, but at the same time, for people, for themselves, they could understand that you could have like phases in your life where you are dieting, but don't let that be all the time, and just have it like set. And I feel like that could help people. Like if you've been dieting for a while, I would say like take a break from it. Like you've already been trying to do it, like take a break before getting back into it. But for the future, don't just kind of try to start dieting and then you'll stop when you reach where you want to be. Instead, think of it as like again the phases in your life. Okay, I'm going to have like a 12-week dieting phase, and then in your mind you also know, okay, this is like a little bit of a period of like sacrifice in terms of like I might be a little bit hungry, I might like say no to that cookie, but it's like for a little bit. And after that you're not necessarily going to go back to, you're going to build habits during that time. You're not going to go back to exactly how you were before those habits, but you're not going to be that restricted as you were on like that like 12-week or whatever. Again, do that like ideally with a professional, with a dietitian or a coach or somebody like that. But then people know that that's 3 months out of the year, maybe. So they have like another 9 months to just not think about that and not be food focused and just enjoy life and have
Mm-hmm.
try to find other pleasures outside of just food as well, but also to have that cookie when they want. Again, something my coach always tells me is like also remembering that food is just always going to be here. Like there's very few foods and very few meals that you're like, if I don't have that right now, I will never have it. Like maybe if you go to like, if you travel to a country and it's really like a food that you've never seen before that you won't go back and you really want it, like sure. But most of the time, if you're at work and people are bringing donuts or something, and for me like Timbits in Canada,
Yeah.
most likely in 3 weeks they're gonna bring Timbits again, or they're gonna bring cookies again, or there's somebody's birthday or something. And again, you can say yes, but if you didn't want to say yes that day, if you didn't really want it, just know that it's gonna come again. Or if there's pizza or something and you only had one slice, you can order a pizza at any point. Like you're fine. Like pizza is not that expensive for most people. And like again, like
I love
I'm
pizza.
speaking for most. Yeah, I think pizza is my favorite too. But that's what I have to remind myself of even when I'm eating it, because I love pizza so much. When I'm eating
Yeah.
it, I have to remind myself that it's never gonna just go away. It's gonna be here. I can put that in the leftovers in the freezer. I don't have to eat the whole pizza. I can
Mm-hmm.
put it in the freezer and have it for another
Mm-hmm.
date.
Mm-hmm.
Or even if like I don't put it in the freezer. Even if I give it away today, I can have pizza tomorrow or next week if I wanted to. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's here.
But a lot of people don't incorporate exercise with within their daily lives, you know, and I think that's a big disservice that you're doing to yourselves if you don't work out in some form of fashion, at least walk. I don't
Yes.
care if you have to get on a treadmill and walk a mile. I don't care, if you drink, 4 or 5 bottles of water a day. I mean, we have to incorporate exercise, and it's not, and exercise isn't just for our physical health.
Yeah,
It's for our mental health as well. And I really
absolutely.
think that people sleep on that mental health factor when it comes to exercise.
Yeah,
Do you talk about mental health in relation to exercise with your people that you work with?
absolutely. I tell like most people, individually, but also I've said that on my Instagram that don't relate exercise to losing weight, because then that's always going to be something of a little bit of a burden for you to do. You don't really want to do it. Fine, I'm going to exercise to lose weight and then I'm never going to do it again. Don't do that. Like exercise, like the amount of calories that you're burning during that exercise session itself,
Mm.
you could, eat a cookie or two and like already get that. Like if people think about that, they just like get demotivated. But exercise has so much more that it does. As you said, like especially if you don't even want to think about it. Exercise, just steps, increase your step count. That's already a very big thing. Again, besides like numerous physical benefits, mentally that helps me so much, and that's one thing that keeps me go. I have people think that I'm always like motivated to go to the gym because I like working out. Like I'm like no. There are some phases in my life where I have a lot going on. It's really stressful, and I
Yeah.
basically have to drag myself to the gym like four
Yeah.
times a week. Like it's
Yeah.
not always easy, but I know, and it happened numerous times where I didn't want to go. Now, if you're like sick, like again, people are gonna go in extreme. It was like, oh, if I'm like really sick or whatever, yeah, like then listen to your body. But a lot of times we're just lazy. Let's be honest. I'm talking about myself too, or we're
Mhm.
just a little bit tired. But we're very easy to tell ourselves to just take the easy route. But the when I've been like grumpy or just a little bit like lethargic or whatever, maybe I ate like maybe I just ate a big pizza, like in the morning. I don't know why I would eat a pizza in the morning, but let's just say I had leftover pizza or something
Yeah.
for
Some people
breakfast.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't really want to go to the gym, then whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever it was, when I went, not even at the end of the workout, but like 10 minutes into it, and I lift weights, but like whatever you like to do, 10 minutes into it, I already felt my mood change. I've been like grumpy or
Yeah.
sad, and then I went there and I sometimes can't really tell you why. I know it's weird because you're going there and you're lifting something heavy that doesn't seem like it would be something necessarily happy. Like if you're trying to make yourself laugh, you're like, okay, yeah, I guess laughter is pretty fun. But exercise, why would that make you happy? It releases the endorphins, and it does. Like your body just does.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No doubt.
so much like it's so good. Like if only for your mental health, if that's the only reason you do it, still do it. Now, in that case, don't do something that you absolutely hate. I don't really like doing burpees at all, so I don't do
Mm.
burpees. So I do
Me
something that
neither.
yeah. So do something that you do enjoy, but
Hmm.
incorporate something, or at least walking. Like again, if you're at the point where you say even walking is difficult, it's needed even more.
Yeah.
Um, but obviously, there's other reasons why people have
Yeah.
difficulty walking. But like whatever you can do, let's just again not talk about exceptions. Let's talk about like in general, most people can walk. Then just take that time out of your day to do it. Again, I live in Canada, so sometimes I don't do it outside. So then I do it when either you have a gym membership, which is not really that expensive at all. You can have very cheap ones and just go and
Right.
walk on the treadmill there,
Right.
or I'll get a treadmill at home or a walking pad. I have a walking pad that's I have I think like put that link on my Amazon so many the Amazon link on my Instagram so many times because I'm like if one thing that you want to add into your life, if you're kind of bored when you're walking on the treadmill, just get a walking pad because it doesn't have like the thing up there, but you can do your work in the meantime. So when I work from home 2 days a week, I'm walking on my walking pad for like sometimes an hour out of the day. Most of the time, from on and off for a couple hours actually. So I maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours, and then I get a little tired, and then I just sit down and continue to do my work, and then I come back and I walk again, and I easily get a lot of steps in with that.
Hmm.
And you're not thinking about it. You're just on there and you're just doing your work, and the time just flies. You're not going like super fast. You're not getting out of breath. You're just getting some activity in.
Uh, Another question I have to ask. Uh, how do you approach someone that's trying to lose weight? Do you tell them that they have to first change their mindset or their diet?
So that's something that we work on, like kind of to get like the mindset and like nutrition aspect all come together. So I don't think most people, they won't kind of just be able to just change their mindset on their own without seeing a little bit of what a change can make. Often what happens is when it's kind of like waiting for motivation then, which won't happen. Whereas if you start making changes, And then you get more confident that, oh, I'm actually not a lazy person. Like maybe they were thinking before, I'm a lazy person, I'm a couch potato, I'm whatever. Um, and then they change that to, well, who is somebody who gets a 30-minute or an hour walk every day, or it doesn't have to be an hour, it's just 20-minute walk every day? Who's somebody who makes sure they're getting their protein in? When you think of those people, you're thinking of like more athletic people. So then they start thinking of themselves as like healthier, more athletic, more maybe like closer to what they pictured kind of in their mind as to who they wanted to be. So they see themselves closer to that goal of where they want to be. And then it's kind of like going together. Their mindset changes as they're starting to make little habits, but I don't change their whole life at once. It would be small changes. Like if I have somebody who's literally like at work a lot with like a desk job and only has being like 200-300 steps, I'm not going to tell them to go and have 10,000 steps plus
Mm.
add this plus add that. You would
Mhm.
be like, okay, why don't you try to get like 2,000 steps? That's already, and usually then you're like, oh, 2,000 or 3,000, that's a lot. But usually for most people, like around like 7,000 steps is what we should be aiming at, just in general, at least just for health.
Really?
Yeah, so like most people get, I would assume, get less than that. If I don't put in the effort, if I'm just going to work and then home, I don't even get that because there's only so much I can walk at work before they fire me. And like that's too much walking around. So I have to get it outside
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit, but
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Um, what's next for you, Miss Keshi? What's next for you in the future?
Yeah, so right now I'm actually trying to take things a little bit slower. So like not really like necessarily like big projects in the works right now. Taking things a little bit slower on my end and trying to incorporate more things that, a lot of times for mental health is not just about what we can remove. Sometimes it's what we can add. So I'm trying to like add things because I've noticed like sometimes I get burnt out from everything. And that's mostly because I don't have things that I do that makes me really happy. Whereas right now I'm trying to again like get into maybe baking a little bit, getting into sewing a little bit. So then sharing those things is what for the podcast I have in mind of like parenting is something that I've been kind of like my phase of like at some point I just get bored of like nutrition content for a little bit because I heard this over and over again, and until I hear something new or
Mhm.
exciting, I'm like, let's move on to a different type of podcast for a few weeks. But so kind of like on the podcast, just getting a wide array of people. So if you're interested in anything that would be like basically getting new skills, making you basically think of it as things that I wish I learned in school that I'm kind of making my podcast about. A lot
Right.
of it is again, I will still have nutrition and fitness things that I wished I learned about how to make meals, how to like how my meals should be, but also other things again as like what to know about like parenting, for example, like things about like different skills or learning a language. I have somebody coming on teaching like not teaching how to learn a language, but giving a little bit of and some insights about that. Or I had you in my podcast just like last week about
Yeah.
talking about like mental health and if somebody's struggling with that. So kind of again things that I wish we learned at school, um, but didn't. So a lot of things would be super relatable for just the general public.
How can people reach you?
Yeah, so if you want to reach me personally, you can email me. You can email me at support@keshifitcoaching.com, support@keshifitcoaching.com, or I have an Instagram at keshifit. I think it's at keshi_fit. And again, the podcast is going to be rebranded. So for now, it's still the Mindset and Muscle podcast on Spotify or YouTube. But I'm thinking it might very soon be like the Keshi Show or Keshi's Corner or something similar. So KESHI, if you look for that, I think there's a singer named Keshi, but besides that, it's not a very common name, so you should be able to find me.
Right. It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
Miss Keshi Munyan, it has been a great pleasure to sit and talk with you. It's been a
Thank
great
you.
pleasure.
It was
So,
such a pleasure for me too.
yes, and thank you guys for listening. If you have any other thing to say, Keshi, I will end our interview. So, um, like I said, it's been a pleasure, and I've learned a few things from our interview. So it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. That was such a fun time. The hour just like flew by.
It did. I was planning for like 30, 45 minutes, but yeah, it's past an hour. So yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
we did good. We did good. So yeah, with that being said, thank you again, Keshi, for taking the time to speak with me. And thank you guys for taking the time out to listen to me and Keshi as well. This is the end for the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. And I hope you guys have a good evening. And you too, Miss Keshi.
Bye bye.